Welcome to another episode of First Light, an original science fiction short story compilation written and narrated by Scott McGowan. The following story contains depictions of graphic violence and gore, including animal attacks, combat violence, and disturbing imagery. These episodes should not be redistributed without express permission. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Finders Keepers. Chapter 1. Lucky. The communication came from an unknown number. Private, it read. Rubyn ignored it. He knew better than to answer calls from anyone other than his contacts. As it stood, that list was two names, the Guild and Victoria. He also wouldn't have been able to answer it at that moment, his left hand holding the gauze, and his right coated in a thick tissue repair gel which was doing an excellent job of locating the small cuts on his fingers. The gash on his calf had mostly stopped bleeding, thanks to Victoria's bandana, and he made sure to clean it with an alcohol solution before applying the gel, which burned as it met his open skin, and he quickly coated the wound while clenching his teeth. His muscles spasmed as though they were trying to escape from the foreign substance, but the gel worked quickly, bonding to his olive skin and pulling it into a tight seal. The leg looked more like a leg again, albeit one that had been mauled. He couldn't stand on it yet, and he resolved that when he could, he would kick himself for his stupidity when his pod vibrated again. A simple animation of what he knew was called a telephone played over top of the caller's name. Private.
2 calls in 2 minutes?
He thought.
They must have the wrong number.
He left it alone. Then it came through again. Amazed at the persistence, he answered.
Rubyn Montgomery.
He stated flatly, hoping the person on the other end would realize their mistake and leave him alone. He was disappointed to hear the response.
That's who I'm looking for.
He sighed and looked over his grisly handiwork.
If this isn't an emergency, I'm gonna have to ask you to call me back in about 10 minutes.
He knew he was being blunt, but the adrenaline was wearing off, and creeping in to replace it was a rather unpleasant throbbing sensation that seemed to worsen with each heartbeat.
If I have to call back in 10 minutes, I'm going to call someone else,
the voice replied. There was no malice in it, merely a statement of intent, but the speaker held an air of brusqueness that only came with authority. Rubyn recognized it could be someone of significance. He attempted to soften his demeanor.
My apologies, I'm a bit indisposed at the moment.
He started to wrap the gauze around the wound and, upon a jolt of pain running up his whole body, suddenly understood that he didn't actually know how to do that.
I know.
The audio modulated for a few seconds, causing the stranger's vocal timbre to rise and fall like a worn magnetic tape.
Those wolves are sly, aren't they?
Rubyn froze. The animals the stranger referred to weren't wolves, not in the old Earth sense, but the creatures he and Victoria had encountered, and handled, mostly through her efforts, were a close enough analog to the historical beasts that most hunters just called them that. They were more of an ambush predator than their namesake, a fact Rubyn was now dealing with the consequences of. But this person couldn't have known that, unless they had access to the guild logs from that excursion.
We knew we were being stalked, sir. We were, unfortunately, inaccurate in our assessment of how many were stalking us.
A chuckle came from the other end, short and humorless.
Yes, I read the report. You're lucky to be alive.
He saw Victoria kneeling over him, her rifle finding its target with ruthless efficiency, beams soaring through the air and leaving a faint, familiar smell of burning ozone in their wake. 1, 2, 3 shots in 3 directions before she turned her attention to him, locking eyes to monitor for consciousness as she hastily dressed his mangled limb.
Luck had nothing to do with it, sir.
Well, consider yourself lucky now. I need you for an assignment.
Rubyn stared at his leg blankly for a few seconds.
You'll have to pardon my disbelief, sir,
he said with a suitably subordinate level of sardonicism. That got a genuine laugh.
I empathize. I felt the same way when Victoria told me she wouldn't take the job without you.
He wasn't sure how to handle this revelation. On the one hand, he thought it was sweet of her, looking out for him like that. On the other hand, was she nuts?
I am in need of her particular skill set. She insisted the two of you are a package deal. So now, I'm talking to you.
The stranger spoke with deliberation and a rare clarity. Whoever he was well practiced at conversation.
I'm flattered, sir. To whom do I owe the pleasure of this call?
The voice did not hesitate.
I'm afraid I can't say.
Rubyn felt a twinge of annoyance, and the mask of formality dropped.
Really? You can't tell me a name? Not even make one up?
I would prefer we be nothing but honest with each other. Unfortunately, my identity is something of a high security matter, and I have no intention of disclosing that information over an unsecured network.
He explained that he was not interested in working for someone who refused to identify himself, but the man on the line insisted that they discuss details in person, telling Rubyn to meet him at the train station directly outside the Sciences Wing in 45 minutes. He was initially hesitant to agree, but the idea of continuing to sit in his apartment and having the image of a wolf locking its jaws around him playing on repeat in his mind did not appeal to him. Plus, it would be a quick trip, minus the extra time walking on a bad leg, and the meeting would be in a public place. If this was a scam, it was not an obvious one, and he felt confident that if both he and Victoria were present for the meeting, that they would not be at risk of getting held up. He briefly imagined a scenario where someone would attempt to mug her, only to be met with a level of violence most would not anticipate could be contained in someone her size. It made him smile.
All right, I'll be there.
Given the possibility of the voice belonging to a high command officer, he deliberately chose the robes he had worn to his commissioning. They were a comfortable but sleek blend of Nova textile and synthetic cotton in colony colors, black with sky blue highlights, and the skirt piece reached his ankles, hiding his mess of a left calf muscle. Now that he couldn't see it, he felt a little lighter. The pain was still there, but it felt easier to manage without the visual to amplify it. Shifting his weight to his good leg, he undid the clasp holding the tight bun on his head together, and his auburn hair fell haphazardly onto his shoulders. He was going to have to take some extra time to fix it, but he wanted to show some effort in his appearance. He found the typical hunter attitude of wearing the same outfit for everything distasteful. The ubiquity of hard light armor reduced choice of uniform almost entirely to personal taste rather than function, and most working hunters would opt for comfortable, less restricting outfits. Victoria was a fascinating exception. She often expressed a level of distrust in her shields, saying once that, "The day I come to rely on it is going to be the day it fails on me." Her closet was relentlessly tactical, with one nice outfit by Rubyn standards: a black formal shirt with a lighter shade of black blazer and suit pants. He had never seen her wear it, even after encouraging her to do so, though that didn't stop him from visualizing what she would look like in something other than camo and compression leggings. He saw her again, crouched over him, and the memory jumped backwards to the moment he felt teeth meet skin. He had seen a flash, his shields failing under the strain of the bite, and then another as his nervous system exploded. He knew he was screaming, but his brain blocked out the noise, and hammering at the beast's skull with the butt of his saber did nothing to release its grip on him. He lost his balance and saw the forest floor start to run away from him, fallen branches and upturned stones catching on his clothes and tearing holes in the fabric. He remembered coming to the realization that he was about to die, and all he could think about was that he hoped he wouldn't have to watch it happen. He slapped himself in the face, and the pain brought him out of the memory. After some gentle coercion, his hair settled neatly behind him, and he further convinced it to stay there with the addition of a traditional shipwright's cap. It would make a good impression on HC, and it matched the outfit, before downing a painkiller with a cold cup of leftover coffee and leaving for the train. Chapter 2. End of the Rainbow. She noticed her index finger rapidly tapping without her input, and she took a deeper breath in, focusing her awareness on the unruly muscles and allowing herself to breathe out the tension. It was a technique she learned during her studies, and while she knew the actual physiological response was not exactly as it was described to her, it reliably produced the desired result. To be free on stage meant to move without strain, without tension, to present oneself as a blank canvas. It was upon this canvas that Victoria was presenting the image of a woman unperturbed by her circumstances. It was an act, mostly for Rubyn's benefit, though the train had not arrived yet at his station. She needed some time to step into character, as it were. The situation did not sit right with her. She had done contract work before and had no qualms with it, but she made sure to vet prospective employers before accepting work and would drop them if they asked her to perform anything outside of the law. She wouldn't usually humor anonymity from a client, but they were adamant that she was the only person for the job, and the pay would be worth her trouble. She was not hurting for ore. She was regimented in her finances, often purchasing only essentials for long periods in order to give herself headroom to upgrade her hunting gear. But the sting of failure was still raw from the last hunt. Filing that report had felt like sticking her face in a bone wasp nest. Failed recovery, medical casualty, having to argue the necessity of discharging her weapon. It was us or them, she wrote, and better 3 dead wolves than 2 dead hunters.
Well, 1 dead hunter.
The thought crept up in her. She had seen deaths, and while she knew one day hers would arrive, it wouldn't come without a fight. A bubbling of pride rose up in her at the notion, and she calmed it as the train came to a gentle stop, the airlock doors opening for the 10 or so new passengers to embark and 2 to leave. One of the latter had been standing in the doorway as it opened, making it awkward for Rubyn to limp past them as the 2 of them attempted to navigate the same space in opposite directions. Victoria met his eyes, and he raised his brows while motioning to the interloper, the wordless message of, "Can you believe that guy?" written plainly on his expression. She smiled at him, mildly, indicating that it was funny, but not that funny. He returned her kindness with a smile of his own. His smiles always reached his eyes. It was a level of sincerity she didn't feel comfortable mirroring.
How's your leg?
She asked. Rubyn responded by lifting the hem of his skirt up to show her the damage. She cringed as she saw that the wound was uncovered. In better shape than before, sure, but still. And she reprimanded him.
I couldn't figure it out in time,
he explained. Victoria assured him that if he had spent less time picking out an outfit and fussing with his hair, he probably would have been able to suss out how to wrap a cloth around his leg. He laughed, even though she was not joking.
It's fine. The gel's doing its job.
She had noticed his limp on the way in.
I'm sorry you had to walk on it. I didn't know this guy was going to ask us to meet him so soon.
It's fine. I've got a cane in my cache if I need it.
He leaned against one of the handholds running from the floor to the ceiling and declined Victoria's insistence that he sit down, opting instead to shift his weight to his right leg.
I've got to say, after today, I wasn't expecting you to want me to tag along.
She didn't follow her initial impulse to respond and chose her words carefully.
You need the experience.
He stopped smiling. Maybe she had chosen poorly, she thought, but after a few seconds of silence, he nodded as if he understood. They didn't speak to each other for the remainder of the trip. Sciences was closer to the rear of the colony, just under 20 minutes without stops, and it was a quieter time of day. Victoria always found it odd, having been born in transit, the insistence on maintaining the 24-hour day cycle from old Earth. It forced her to develop a consistent sleep regimen to adhere to what she found to be an unnatural rhythm. She would use that to her advantage on occasion, shifting her circadian clock a few hours earlier than other hunters in order to get first pick at contracts. The last job had been one of these, and the weight of what she had gone through to get it was heavier now that it hadn't gone as she had hoped. But she did not let herself fully carry that load. She would have to deal with it later, when this job was done. The pristine white walls of the science division came into view through the train windows. Even the station, despite not falling under their operations budget, was held to a high standard of cleanliness. Teams of white-robed people could be seen scouring the walls with handheld sanitization devices, and as Victoria and Rubyn exited onto the platform, a friendly young man offered one of these to them. It was a thick, sleek wand with a bright yellow hard light disc mounted on an adjustable head, similar to the kind of device Victoria had at home, and they used it to clean their shoes. She recalled the urgent notice about a novel bacteria from a few weeks ago. One of her other hunting partners, Bill, had fallen terribly ill from it, and the annoyance of having to take these measures quickly melted. Humanity was not quite used to the planet yet, and vice versa. She had been given instructions on where to meet their prospective employer, and following them led the two of them not into the towering, sun-gleamed building that waited outside the station, but down a walkway that followed the perimeter of its outer courtyard. The white stone walls were so bright that they were hard to look at, and so they kept their eyes opposite, taking in the expansive vista of open space through the ship windows. The central star for this system was smaller and brighter than old Earth's sun, and the windows had needed their refractive index adjusted in order to compensate. As a result, when the ship was in the right position, the sunlight would disperse into a vivid rainbow of colors, a happy accident that led to many new developments, like sciences, to paint their buildings white in order to capitalize on the occasional majesty. This was not one of those times, and Victoria had to squint to fight off a budding ocular migraine until they reached the edge of the courtyard wall and found themselves among a closely packed set of gray, windowless structures, all of them hard-edged and rectangular and only a few stories tall. They cast long shadows on the alleyways between them, and Victoria suddenly wished she had asked a few more people to come along.
Stay close to me,
she commanded, and Rubyn did so. Despite the clear absence of any other people on the walkways, the air felt tense, and she felt as though there was someone, or something, lurking behind them as they navigated according to the stranger's instructions. She took note of the lack of security cameras, typically posted at intersections in residential districts, and wondered if this had been an older development that hadn't been updated. Before she could explore the idea, her pod vibrated, and a message displayed on its screen. "Stop there. I'll come out." She stopped abruptly, causing Rubyn to bump into her, whispering an apology as he looked around. They were in the middle of two convergent walkways, leaving them open on all sides, and they kept their backs to one another in order to keep an eye out for their patron. Victoria's hand hovered over her right thigh, just above where the hidden holster was on that side, in the event that they were about to get jumped. She wouldn't have time to use her pod, and a handgun was better than no weapon at all. She did not blink, only shifted her view from the one street to the other. A noise. Her fingers twitched. She cursed under her breath at the movement.
Not yet.
She thought.
Not until you see a weapon.
Rubyn didn't seem to hear it, but it came from his side.
Swap,
she told him, and they quickly changed places. Another noise, louder this time, from her left. Her eyes darted to the source and saw a figure in the shadows. She did not move. It did. Slowly. She watched it approach them, its massive eyes catching stray sunbeams and reflecting a white glow. And she saw that its head was similarly large and bulbous, and she felt her fingers twitch again.
Breathe.
1, 2, 3 seconds. It was getting closer.
And out.
1, 2, 3 seconds. It stopped, a few feet away from her, and she saw it had hands like hers. Human hands. She noticed the tension in her shoulders and let her breath melted away. Straightening herself up, she gave Rubyn a nudge with her elbow, letting him know their contact had arrived. "It's a pleasure to meet you in person," the figure spoke, and his voice was smooth and jovial. He put his hand to his chest and offered them a small bow. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Emery. You may call me M." This has been an audio presentation of Finders Keepers, part of an original short story compilation written and narrated by Scott McGowan, and starring Sean Hebert as Rubyn and Nancy MacDonald-Kerr as Victoria. If you enjoyed the presentation, I would encourage you to please share it with someone who might like it as well. Make sure you subscribe to the show in the podcast player of your choice so that you get notified of future episodes. Bye now.